was this Hakeem 12 months ago or 18 months ago when Joe Biden was giving directives to take away barbed wire, to just open up our border wall fences and allow anybody to come in? Where was that, Hakeem? Now we have the Soros judges that are just releasing these individuals that are getting swept up, and they're getting them back to the streets. This is just Operation Chaos, quite frankly, that the Democrats and specifically the progressives are up to. That again, this is just another layer of the activist judges that are trying to disallow and to impede the progress that Movino, Homan, and Kristi Noem are making.
President Trump's national security mission to expel illegal aliens has now arrived in Louisiana. U.S. Border Patrol agents are in New Orleans executing Operation Catahoula Crunch. It's the latest phase in President Trump's aggressive push to remove illegals who are committing particularly heinous crimes.
Exactly.
Out of all of our American cities. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Several hundred agents now are spread across New Orleans as Border Patrol continues to clean up sanctuary cities.
The concept of these sanctuary city policies is asinine. DHS, rightfully so, is stepping in, launching this operation to carry out, again, this president's promise to carry out the largest deportation of criminal illegals in history.
President Trump is making good on his promise to the American people, the Homeland.
That he has, and this has been a promise. And when you look at this, an average of 820 a day, those have been primarily coming from blue state governors creating sanctuary cities with radical progressive mayors. That's exactly what's been going on. That's what we have seen in Chicago, in New York, in Charlotte, in Houston, and now in New Orleans. So this promise by Trump, again, is a couplefold, right? Part of the MAGA platform was to keep America safe by closing the borders. This is going to control and allow us to get jobs to Americans so that the criminal illegal aliens don't get those. It allows us to keep an eye and vet properly anybody that's coming into the country. And then lastly, it allows us to keep our cities safe. So many of these, and Harris did a nice job in adding this heinous word to this data point, which is these are not just people that broke the law, even though they did by coming to the country illegally. These are people that have done multiple crimes since coming into the country or by fleeing their past country, having been criminals. And you can see that from the ICE database. In fact, these are no, again, the Democrats have had this talking point where these are grandmothers and mothers and children, and these are hardworking taxpayers. The truth of the matter is that assaults, this is green on blue assaults, which is illegal aliens on federal police and enforcement officers, is up 1,150% in the last 12 months. These are no angels. This is a deliberate sweep by Tom Homan, by Kristi Noem, and by President Donald Trump to keep our city safe and to clear out the illegal aliens.
Security Department is reporting in President Trump's second term so far, nearly 580,000 illegal aliens have been arrested, an average of more than 800 per day. Even House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is giving the president some credit.
In terms of the border, securing the border, can you give President Trump any credit for securing the border? Because as you know, that was a big issue under the Biden administration when you had record border crossings, and those border crossings have gone down dramatically. Can you give him credit for that?
The border is secure. That's a good thing. It's happened on his watch. He wants to claim credit for it. Of course, he'll get credit for that.
This pains Hakeem to say this, and of course he says something that's obvious, which is having a safe and secure and closed border is a good thing. Well, where was this Hakeem 12 months ago or 18 months ago when Joe Biden was giving directives to take away barbed wire, to just open up our border wall fences and allow anybody to come in? Where was that, Hakeem? Well, the truth of the matter is that Hakeem was praising that policy, saying that anything other than that was inhumane. So this is a deliberate pivot because what Hakeem is seeing is that this is polling terrible with Americans, in that having a closed border is polling well, having an open border polled terrible. And this is his first step in preparing for the midterms.
Republican Senator Joni Ernst coming up in focus. We begin with senior correspondent Mike Tobin. And I know, Mike, you did a ride-along with Border Patrol agents in New Orleans.
I did yesterday, and they have begun their operation here in a very rainy and cold New Orleans. As you mentioned, we were with them yesterday as they first targeted the parking lot of a Home Depot. They target the Home Depots because they know that is where people who don't have legal status often wait around for day labor. What we didn't see yesterday was a big roundup of individuals. It was no secret that Border Patrol was coming down to the Big Easy, and what we have through local reporting is that people who don't have legal status stayed home, laid low, largely stayed out of sight. So ultimately, Chief Greg Bovino and the El Centro sector agents mounted up a foot patrol and came right here through the heart of the French Quarter. It seems pretty clear that you're wanting your presence to be known.
Well, we're a uniformed law enforcement agency, Mike, as you know, so this is what we do, whether it's a foot patrol like this, whether it's roving patrol in vehicles, boats, you've seen us on the river there in Chicago, or in the air, it doesn't matter. We're going to utilize any method we can to, again, go after those bad people and bad things.
So we need to give the Trump administration a tremendous amount of credit. Bovino has been an outstanding hire. Tom Homan, outstanding hire. And quite frankly, Kristi Noem has done an outstanding job with DHS. These three individuals have been really key to the execution of Trump's strategy. And if we can criticize Trump at times, it's going to be on some of the individuals that he surrounds himself with and or has hired in the past. Of course, in the first term, we do have that criticism of some of those individuals. Here, though, if you watch and remember this guy's name, Bovino, he's going to be a central person to executing Homan and Noem's strategy. And he's got this cockiness and this attitude, which is 100% appropriate. We need to be visible. We need to be out in front of the community. They don't care that it was announced that they're coming to New Orleans, because the reality of the matter, they just pivoted. They went to the houses instead of the Home Depots, and they're still doing their job. So outstanding job here. And again, I think all of us in America First and MAGA land, Magadonia, can be proud of what our DHS and our Border Patrol agents are doing. They're doing the right thing, and this has been a tremendously difficult effort, one that's, not fraught without danger, as I said earlier. An 1,150% increase on green on blue assaults just in the last 12 months. That's tremendous. So we need to praise our law enforcement officers here, and certainly praise Bovino for doing what he's doing, which is leading the spear in getting out to these sanctuary cities and being visible and unrepentant. It's outstanding to see.
Now, the agents did get some heckling, but also shouts of support and people who wanted to take selfies, particularly with Chief Bovino.
I'm an immigrant. I'm from South Africa. I came here legally, in a legal way, in terms of my legal visa, and I did everything by the book.
There you go.
DHS released mugshots of people detained thus far. Their crimes range from battery to child endangerment. One person picked up yesterday is Vietnamese. He'd been sentenced to 40 years for aggravated kidnapping and sex assault with a deadly weapon, but paroled and released. The process is underway now.
This is a key point, that paroled and released point, right? Now we have the Soros judges that are just releasing these individuals that are getting swept up, and they're getting them back to the streets. This is just Operation Chaos, quite frankly, that the Democrats and specifically the progressives are up to. When you have a 40-year criminal with assault charges like this Vietnamese gentleman was charged with, and then to release them, cashless bail, totally unacceptable. And you can see that, again, this is just another layer of the activist judges that are trying to disallow and to impede the progress that Bovino, Homan, and Kristi Noem are making.
now to get him out of the U.S. It's a very different environment than we saw in Chicago. We don't see the crowds of protesters forming up thus far anyway, and the real difference seems to be support from local officials. Governor Landry in particular has welcomed the federal agents to start cleaning up crime here in the Big Easy, and we see even the local police promising to protect the federal agents while they conduct their operations here in New Orleans.
This brings up again a critical point. When we start to see the pivot, and you're going to see this shortly going up to New York City come early spring once winter breaks, that's going to be when Mondami is now the mayor, and we're going to see the radical NYPD installation that he's going to put in, right, the puppet into the NYPD and the other civil service agencies in New York City. You're not going to see a whole lot of calm. You're going to see chaos. You're going to see organized demonstrations. And part of the benefit of what's going on right now as they sweep the northern cities is that they have the weather to their advantage. But once the organizers get a breath of fresh air and that good weather, they're going to be marching out on the streets. These are going to be organized and funded through NGOs and Soros money. We know that. That's their playbook. And what they're ultimately trying to do with this strategy is just to slow down the progress that's being made and then to play their tune, which is this emotional argument where these are good people, these are grandmothers and mothers and children, not people like this Vietnamese gentleman that totally fly in the face of their storyline, which is career criminals are getting the exit door. And that's primarily been the focus of DHS and Border Patrol. They aren't just blanketly going to anybody. They're trying to focus on certain individuals at each one of these cities.
Harris?
Well, it's so interesting. I'm sure people are watching and saying, but there's a Republican governor in Louisiana. Yes, that is true. But New Orleans is a sanctuary city. And I know the incoming mayor-elect is Helena Moreno. And I don't hear any plans to change that. So there they are on the ground. Great reporting always, Mike. Thank you. Law enforcement officers across the country are facing an explosion of threats and attacks. Many point to dangerous rhetoric from the left as a driving force.
And again, some of this footage, as you can see, Harris brought up a great point, which is it comes down to the local leaders, right? In this instance, this is footage from L.A., where you had a radical progressive governor in Newsom, and then Karen Bass, the mayor, who was encouraging these riots. And you can see, I mean, this is not just blowing whistles and farting around with signs. This is throwing, rocks at the trucks. This is terrible to see, and this is what we can expect. Again, when you get this alignment, it's kind of a double whammy. When you have a progressive governor and a sanctuary city with a progressive mayor and then progressive judges, you're going to have a whole lot of friction. And where do you see that, right? You're going to see that with Pritzker and the idiot mayor up in Chicago. You're absolutely going to start to see that in New York City, right? Where you have Kathy Hochul and then laying down the local level leadership with incoming socialist, Marxist, unrepentant Marxist, Mondami. So it's that local level pull through that's really going to be critical in keeping our border patrol safe.
Behind what you see, the numbers horrific. The Department of Homeland Security data show assaults against ICE agents up 1,150%. It grows precipitously almost daily. Death threats up 8,000%. A House hearing yesterday laid bare the grave danger to our law enforcement.
This is going to be a critical message that the progressives and Hakeem are going to need to balance. Again, they're starting to prepare their foundation and their candidates going into the midterms. And you saw this pivot with Hakeem, where he's trying to now navigate this message that Trump gets credit for the closing the border, and that's a good thing. That's totally different and the antithesis of where he was 12 or 18 months ago. But specifically these assaults, right? When you're getting this green on blue assault, when you start to have our local first responders, not just the federal, be involved, this is something that's terribly unpopular with the voting public. And the progressives have to be really careful with this. This is where their message just falls on deaf ears. That if we're going to support anybody, even just pick a moderate Democrat voter, they're not going to be happy seeing this statistic. They could disagree with the policy, but they are going to agree with the fact that this is totally inappropriate, and they're just not going to vote. So you're going to see a lack of turnout because the progressive candidates are holding extreme views going into the midterms. And if you have that, you're just going to see a deafened or dampened vote. There's no doubt. And that's exactly what Hakeem sees. That's why he's changing his message.
One of my colleagues on the other side had the audacity to claim that Homeland Security was the biggest threat to our country and to our safety. That pisses me off. That is reckless. That is dangerous.
Even members of this committee have called ICE and DHS and other law enforcement officers Nazis, racists, terrorists, Gestapo. I find that, and I find the accusations shameful. Shameful.
And part of the reason why you're seeing so much heat now from the right on this is because of the length of time Democrats have been playing this dangerous game. I mean, that rhetoric from the left has been on full display for months.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets.
When I see ICE, I see slave patrols.
This is Gestapo-like behavior.
It does look like a Gestapo operation.
Senator Joni Ernst of the great state of Iowa, Republican, member of the House Security and Armed Services Committees. Great to see you. First of all, there is so much talk about a period of time in our world's history that deserves to be in the lane that it is. The Nazis, Hitler, were killers. And to bring that into the present day is not only irresponsible, it's stupid.
It's dangerous, and that's exactly why you see this spike. So where Joni is going to go, right, is basically planting the seed that the Democrat leadership has to make a choice, and their choice is clear. Are they going to go with what America wants to hear from them, which is a rebuttal on this kind of extremist language? If they don't do this, you're going to see a deafened turnout in midterms, which are traditionally low voter turnout as well. The progressives have hijacked the Democrat Party. We've seen this and we know this. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck were just the leading edge of the spear, because now you're starting to see AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and others, Dan, right, the guy from, the white guy from Connecticut, taking on this Gestapo language, right? This is dangerous rhetoric that will not play well with America. It doesn't matter if you're going to be voting on the coasts. The truth of the matter is that they're just not going to vote. And that's what you see with Hakeem. He's going to be pivoting a message to be a little bit more moderate, because you have to move, right? You win. The strategy that we all know is that you win primaries by going to the extremes, and you win the national elections when you start to move into the middle. Hakeem's going to have to move his party to the middle, and that's going to be really his battle. We've seen that AOC doesn't want any part of this middle move, that we see Jasmine Crockett. She is not going to help this case at all. So Hakeem's in a tough position as Democrat leader. He needs to find a moderate position. This is one that Trump is not going to give up on. He's going to continue his efforts with the ICE into the sanctuary cities, and we're going to see a blunted turnout, quite frankly, from the blue dog Democrat voters, the moderates, the independents, which are going to be key. So that's my prediction, and I'm curious what you think. Do you agree that this messaging of Gestapo, of ICE being, the enemy, is not going to play well for the Democrats, and that's why we saw Hakeem move his pivot? I think that's why, and it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. So Operation Cataloosa is in full swing in New Orleans, and they will be moving up to New York City shortly. We just need to have the winter break come through, and that's going to be where it gets really interesting, because that's going to be that much closer to the midterms. That's also going to be when Mamdani takes over mayor as New York City. So more to come. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe and like to this video and to our channel. We are doing everything we can to get the America First pro-Donald Trump messaging out to all of you. So again, if you want to come along for the ride, we sure would love to have you. Hit the subscribe button. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments.